my watch, we're running a little bit late. It's time to get started with our meeting. So I think it's on now, right? Yeah. Yeah, Landon's turned it on. My name, in case ever no one knows it or that you're like me, you see a face, you recognize it, but you don't know the name that goes with it. I'm Wayne Blackburn, and I'll be your host. And for the people that are streaming and not being able to be here, but at home watching on streaming, I want to set one thing clear. This is not the young and restless. This is the young at heart, brought to you from the First United Methodist Church in Bossier. I hope we didn't lose half of the streaming audience real quickly. The month of June, it's hard to believe that here it is, the 15th. We're already halfway through this month, and soon going to be halfway through the whole year. The month of June always had a very special place in my family's heart. Number one, today would be my mother's birthday. She'd be 106 if she was alive. 81 years now if they were both still alive. And also, the month of June has Father's Day in it. So for my parents, it was a gift month. They got a lot of gifts during the month. The month of June was named after Juno, which is the goddess so youthful, and they're so protective of everything. But they're like my parents. They have a birthday and an anniversary within June. Joyce Lowry on June the 18th will have her birthday, and Ted and Joyce on June the 2nd celebrated 58 years of marriage. And with the other anniversaries that I have listed here on my cheat sheet, Dan and Minnie Kane on June the 1st celebrated 49 years. Kay and David Dietzel on June the 3rd has spent 51 heavenly years together. And Will and Brookie Marston on June the 11th celebrated 52 glorious years together. Other birthdays this month: Jeff DeLong on June the 22nd, Barbara Dean Cronenberg, June the 23rd, Glenn Oventurth, June the 23rd, Carol Smith, June the 26th. So, do we have someone that wants to start off with happy birthday song? As a big group, we can do it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. I can't hear you. And many more. And also at this time, I will, since I was talking about gifts, before I forget about it, we'll give out the door prizes. So I'll call out a number, and Geneva will call out the name, and we will deliver the prize. So let's say the first number is number 9. Dorothy whom? Oh, okay. Number 11. Somebody, it doesn't matter, somebody pass them out. It doesn't matter. How many numbers do we have? Up to 33. Number 28. Good. We got one more. Well, that very last lucky person, 33. And if you got a piece of paper handed out on your table, next month, July the 20th, will be a luncheon outing starting at 11 o'clock at McAllister's. So make your plans to attend Young at Heart at McAllister's at 11 o'clock. No need to really call in and make reservations. They said that there's room for plenty, so everybody show up. I think we had 30 last time that we were having an outing, and wasn't any problems there. Now going back to talking about the month of June, I don't know who comes up with all these special days and special dates, and it's unbelievable, all the awareness days that we have, special days. I just listed a few things that are celebrated in June. And we all know right now that the whole month of June is listed as Pride Month. And then we also have Alzheimer's Awareness Month. We have Gun Violence Awareness Month on June the 3rd. On June the 8th is World Ocean Day. On June the 16th, I know all of you love this one, the World Sea Turtle Day. June the 20th, World Refugee Day. And a birthday that I didn't mention, but a name that we're all very familiar with, Helen Keller's birthday is on June the 27th. Just yesterday, we celebrated Flag Day. And we have a new federal holiday that is coming up in June, June 10th, our Jubilee Day. And also some other awareness special days, PTSD Month, Immigrant Heritage Month, and one that Shreveport ought to be proud of. It's National Rose Month. Shreveport has a National Rose Garden. If you hadn't ever had an opportunity to go out, it's a very nice garden. Be sure to attend it. Some special happenings on this day in history. On June the 15th, 1836, Arkansas was brought into the Union as the 25th state. And thank goodness for good old Benjamin Franklin. He successfully completed his famous kite experiment, which led to the invention of the lightning rod. The 15th, all of you have a telephone. It's got a camera on it. All day long, take a lot of pictures, post them, because this is National Photography Day. And also, as we've already mentioned, on the 18th, this Sunday, will be Father's Day. And as we all know, our children sometimes can really embarrass us sometimes at certain events. Just like this child on Father's Day. He was attending big church for the first time. He watched as the ushers passed around the offering plate. And when they neared the pew, he sat upright. The usher piped up real loud so everyone could hear him. "Daddy, don't pay for me. I'm under 5. And we've also always heard that it's very difficult for children to be brought up in a minister's family. Everybody watches them and takes care of them. Just And then in this instance, a son and his father, who's a minister, has a little conversation. A young boy had just gotten his driver's permit. He asked his father, "Can we talk about the use of the car?" His father said, "Sure, come on in the study and we'll talk about it. I'll make you a deal, son. You bring your grades up, study your Bible a little, and get your hair cut, and then we'll really talk about it." So he waited about a month, and the boy came back and said, "Dad, can we discuss my use of the car?" "Sure, let's go to the study and we'll talk about it." He said, "Son, I'm really very proud of you. You've brought your grades up. You've studied your Bible diligently, but you didn't cut your hair." Well, the young man, the son, thought about it a little bit. So he thought, well, I'll put some of my biblical studies into this. "Dad, Samson had long hair. Moses had long hair. Noah had long hair. And even Jesus had long hair. Son, you're absolutely right. And every one of them walked everywhere they needed to go." So the minister's wisdom came through. And along with this time and event, our speaker, Ray Brown, and I was discussing it shortly there. We all have violence around us everywhere. Our community is full of violence. The United States is full of violence. The world is full of violence. And I found this article that I thought was kind of interesting. It was entitled, "Jesus and Harvard Researchers Agree. Nonviolence really works the best." Jesus taught that nonviolent love was the best way changing the world. But most people, even most Christians, didn't actually believe that's true. Neither did Harvard political scientist Erica Shinchowicz. It's an unusual name. Like most of us, Erica Shinchowicz grew up in a culture that glamorized violence and war. She grew playing video games like Mortal Kombat, reading books like The Hunger Games, watching TV shows like The Power Rangers and Walker, Texas Ranger, going to see movies like Die Hard and Full Metal Jacket. These are all forms of media that in one way or another suggest that if you really want your way in this world, the most effective way is to go about it using violent force. That's what Erica grew up believing, and that's what probably most of us do. So in 2006, when a fellow researcher challenged Erica to take a look at the historical data and prove that violence was actually more effective than nonviolence, she was pretty certain of what she would find. She was certain she would find that people who used weapons would achieve their ends far more often and far more effectively than those who did not. So what she did was this. She took over 100 years of data from campaigns for regime change across the globe. She looked at revolutions in places like Syria, Chile, and Morocco. She categorized these campaigns as primarily violent or nonviolent, and whether they were successful or not. What Erica found was that nonviolent campaigns were actually those were more effective at creating and changing the world, but not just a little more effective. What Erica discovered was that the nonviolent campaigns were in fact twice as likely to succeed than their violent counterparts. A violent campaign for regime change has a 25% chance of success, while a nonviolent one has a 50% chance. How do you make the world better? Well, Harvard political scientist Erica Shevnovich and Jesus agree. Love, inclusive, outreaching, nonviolent love. What are nonviolent ways? God teaches us that it is love. Paul wrote, as we all know, in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, starting with verse 4, love is patient and kind. Love is not boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it does not keep record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstances. So this Father's Day, I hope your children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren can come up to each father and they say, thank you for loving me. Love will cure a lot of things. God told us, love your neighbor as yourself. It's a shame that we don't practice it. Well, I thought our guest was a journalist, and after he handed me his bio, which I will read to you, which is longer than my whole program. He's so important. He's done so much. But he works with journalists and been exposed and around journalists a lot. And I bet he has experienced this, that journalists are rare breeds of people. They may appear all composed and calm on the outside, but one must see them at their workplace. With news breaking every moment, they scream, shout, gulp down several cups of coffee, and rush to the typewriter and type furiously. Anybody that has seen a journalist at work will tell you the absolute madness of the profession entails them, and also how severely, and you don't know whether you agree with this, underpaid they are. But they will also tell you that given the chance, they would probably choose the same profession again. And I imagine most journalists, one time in their career, maybe used the wrong tactic in order to write a story, just as this journalist did. A car was involved in an accident in a street. As expected, a large crowd gathered very quickly. A newspaper reporter, anxiously to get his story written, could not get near the car. Being a sharp and clever journalist, he started shouting loudly, "Let me through! Let me through! I am the son of the victim." The crowd quickly opened up and let him through. Lying in front of the car was a donkey. I don't know whether you've seen that tactic used before or not. But before I introduce our speaker, I overlooked Roger Tinsley. Go ahead, Kirsten.
Hello. Y'all keep Roger Tinsley in your prayers. He's got kidney and prostate cancer. And also, there's 2 people in the hospital, Glenn Alderman and Marilyn Walker. Marilyn fell and Glenn had surgery. Oh, she is? Okay.
I also know that I guess he's still in the hospital. He was the latter part of the first part of this week. Charles Boone is in the intensity specialty hospital there on Viking Drive. He has a UTI and is not doing very well. He's not responding to it very well, and I assume that he is still in the hospital there. I generally serve communion to the family, and as of right now, he's not feeling up to receiving communion. So keep all of those, and each of you know other people that are sick and ill that needs our prayers. And before I introduce our guest speaker, I'm sure everybody that came in this door down here passed by the kitchen, and it just kind of looked like a beehive in there. Just a lot of queens. I never knew a beehive to have so many queens. But I bet these queens are all turning into workers now and are going to soon be serving us a delicious lunch. So at this time, I would like to bless the food so that it can be brought in as soon as Ray is finished with his talk that he's going to give us. So let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity to come together. Thank you so much for the kitchen help that works diligently to prepare food for us. Let that food that we consume nourish our body so that we can serve you and be a better Christian and a better servant for you. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Bear with me as I read Ray Brown's bio. How do you pronounce the name of the paper now? Speck. Okay, I thought it was pronounced Speck. As of March the 1st, 2022, Ray Brown is the original publisher, general manager, and executive vice president of Speck Newspapers Incorporated. His responsibilities include daily oversight and management of the Bossier Press Tribune, Minden Press Herald newspapers, as well as contributing input and guidance related to the other businesses, entities operating under the Speck Newspaper Incorporated umbrella. Randy considers it a sincere honor to be in a position where he can lead and motivate employee members to their best. He loves having a presence in the community involving volunteering for both community service events and also for several area nonprofit organizations. He tries his very best each and every day to make sure that his company's newspapers and businesses are profitable in a manner that serves God, serves the community, and serves his employee team members and their families. Randy worked in his family's electronics, appliance, and furniture distribution business from age 12. He graduated from Captain Shreve High School in 1980, finished his BS degree in business administration at LSU Shreveport in 1985, and completed his MBA at Centenary College in 1994. Randy is very active in his church in teaching Sunday school and playing drums. Do you want to play the drums for us? For his praise and worship team. He has been with Speck Newspapers, Bossier Press Tribune, since 2001, becoming advertising director in 2002 and publisher in 2014. Randy currently serves as a board member of the Louisiana Press Association in Baton Rouge, and he continues to serve as a longtime board member for Keep Bossier Beautiful. He is a past president of LSU Shreveport Alumni Association and a past president of the Shreveport-Bossier Advertising Foundation. Randy is also a member of the Bossier City Lions Club. He has served on several boards and belongs to several organizations during this time at the Bossier Press Tribune. Randy was recently married to his high school sweetheart and girlfriend. I'm glad she was your girlfriend. For over 40 years. Randy is often asked what he likes best about his position at the newspaper and what he gets to do every day. His answer, having a front row seat that allows me to see all of the amazing gifted leaders and citizens in the Bossier Parish area tirelessly doing what they do each and every day, and being able to witness all of the unbelievable growth happening in Bossier Parish. This is a truly humbling situation to be in. I consider myself extremely blessed to be in this position, and I thank God each day for the unbelievable opportunities that He continuously sends His way. God has given me this platform, and I have always tried to use it to be the best of my abilities in a way that serves and honors Him. I also thank God each and every day for this tremendous support that the Bossier Press Tribune receives from the Bossier Parish community. The floor is yours. Let's welcome Randy Brown, excuse me.
Again this morning. I was trying to look in my phone and see I spoke to your Young at Heart group about 5 to 6 years ago. Looks like it was 2018, maybe late 2017. We were in a smaller room down the hall, and it's a pleasure to be back. I was last in your church for Mr. Loy Moore's service several months ago, and I've been here. I actually received an award from the Boy Scouts in this very room a couple of years ago, and had noticed a lot of changes. The cafe was not out here last time I was here. That is beautiful. It is so pretty, and it's such a great privilege to be here this morning. I appreciate that lovely introduction. How many of you are familiar with our newspaper? Thank you. I like seeing that. Oh, I thought I heard somebody say something. I'm sorry. The history of the Bossier Press Tribune, this surprises a lot of people, goes back to 1857. Now, it was not called the Bossier Press Tribune at that point, but the history of Bossier newspapers goes back to 1857. The History Center over next to the library over here on Beckett Street has all that information in there. They have old newspapers going way, way back. I can go and just spend hours in there just looking. And it's so interesting to see all that. In that span, Bossier Parish, Bossier City has evolved into what is known as one of the fastest growing communities north of I-10. And it's just amazing, like I was saying in the bio, to see what all's happened here and what is happening. The newspapers started in Bellevue. That was the parish seat of Bossier back in 1857, and then moved down to Benton. And that was, you think about it, with the farming and agriculture community, that was kind of the center of activity in Bossier Parish back in those days. And then moved down to Bossier. For many years, many of you may remember, there was a Bossier Press and a Bossier Tribune located down on Barksdale Boulevard in what is now the booming, bustling East Bank district. They merged around 1973 or 4 and became the Bossier Press Tribune. Speck Newspapers bought the Bossier Press Tribune back in 1997. They had owned the Minden Press Herald since the mid-60s, and Mr. Speck had owned several community-type newspapers all over the South and even up into the Midwest. And they bought the Bossier Press Tribune in 97, And we became part of the Speck newspaper, still family owned. Mr. Speck unfortunately passed away in 2011, but his son David is the owner now. And David is well, look, I'll say a young man, a little bit younger than me actually. But he does a great job as being our owner and our leader. And we just have a conservative Christian belief, and that's what we try to do and what we do for this community. Our newspaper, and I brought several copies if y'all want, and that's yesterday's edition. Right up under our name, we put Serving God in Our Community. And as long as I'm publisher, that will continue to be there. A lot of times when I'm speaking in public, I will have people in certain instances challenge me and say, well, you can't do that. You can't put that there. Well, yes, we can. We're a private company, and we can do that if we want to, and that will always be there because that's who we are. A newspaper represents the community it serves, or should. That's our belief. And we just try our best each and every day with the stories that are in there. We're a community newspaper, and that's what we've always been. Sometimes to maintain credibility if something bad or something like that happens, yes, in certain instances you have to put that in there or you're not seen as a credible news source. But otherwise, you're mainly going to see good news and the good stories about what's going on here. That's what we do. That's who we are. That's what we want to do. I have the privilege of writing a column every week. Sometimes, based on schedules, I don't get to make every single edition like I used to, but I try as often as I can to get my column in there because I love sharing the platform. I love sharing the platform God has given me. My mother was always scared the ACLU was going to come after me for some of the things that I say. And I said, well, Mom, if they do, they do. I'm entitled to my opinion, and I'm just saying what God has put on my heart to say because that's in me, and I've got to get it out. And I almost every day have someone, just like what happened when I came in this morning, come up to me and say, and I don't mean to sound like I'm bragging, I'm sorry if it comes across this way, but I love what you write, I love the way you write it, I love the fact that you're willing to say what you say, and that just warms my heart and makes me feel special, because all I'm doing is just pouring out my feelings, and that's just what is right here, and that's what's in my heart to say and what I believe. And I had that come back to me all the time, and I also had that come back to me about the paper in general. We're a community newspaper. We cover the schools. We cover a lot of the stuff you're not going to see anywhere else. And that's what we do. That's what we want to do. But those school kids, those baseball teams, those football teams, those clubs and all, at our elementary schools, even all the way down to kindergartners. A friend of mine sends me a lot of photos from the horse riding club up in Benton, which involves a lot of younger kids, middle school, high school age, that kind of stuff. We always love publishing that kind of stuff because that's what we do. You know, traditionally, before the days of electronic media, and I'll get to that in a minute, but you would cut things like that you saw out in the newspaper, be it a family member, a child, grandchild, relative, or whatever, and put it up on the refrigerator. That's just what you did. And we still want to believe that there's still people out there that wants to do that. You can't do that from Facebook. You can't, yeah, you could print something out on a printer, but it's just not quite the same. Somebody right before I came here called and wanted copies of our newspaper with something that was in there a couple of weeks ago. They want to take and have it laminated and framed. And I love hearing those kind of things because that's what it's all about. That's a big part of why we do what we do, to have people recognize that and to have people say, hey, this is important to me. I want to keep it. I want to save it. And that drives us to do what we do. But we take pride. I know I'm skipping around here a little bit. We take pride in covering Bossier Parish from top to bottom, from Plain Dealing all the way down to Elm Grove, from the river right over here all the way out to the other side of Houghton. We take pride in doing that, and that's what we do. That's what we want to do. Plain Dealing, for example, they love it. When we go to the high school up there, I cover a lot of sports, and I love doing National Photography Day. I love doing sports photography. I had always wanted to do that all my life, and many of you may remember Jerry Bird, our former sports editor that wrote for the Shreveport Journal for so many years. Many years later, after the Journal shut down, he came with our Minden newspaper. And then there was an opportunity for him to come over and work for us here in Bossier. And I learned so much from him. It's just inexplicable. I can't explain. And I'm so thankful that I got to be around him for the years that I was around him. But he, when his health started going down, he just wasn't able to quite be out there like he was. So our owner, David Specht, and myself, both bought cameras out of our own pockets at that point and would go out and help Jerry. Jerry had me out there about 6 nights a week at one point. And I'm like, this was fun, but maybe this is a little too much. I love what I do, but I just kind of got into it. To me, that became like fishing or anything else. It just kind of became a hobby. And I'd go to a football game and take maybe 400 or 500 photos and then have to go home and look through and pick out the ones I wanted, which took hours sometimes. But, you know, to capture that perfect, these high-speed cameras that shoot 5 or 6 frames a second, it's almost like watching a cartoon. If you've ever seen the way cartoons are actually done or used to be done, they were actually hand-drawn back in the day. And each little movement had to be a separate drawing. Well, that's what it looks like on that camera. But you'll eventually come to something that's just, you know, the football's in midair or somebody's in a certain, and you're like, that's the photo I want. And so it became really quite almost like a detective mission or a search mission to search through those 500 photos and find the ones that I wanted. And I don't get to do that. This past year was the first year in about 12 years that I didn't make a single football game. And but we've got football season coming up, so I'm going to make a game or two this year. But Ronnie Coker, that was the athletic director at Airline High School that passed away last week, just from me, and that's in my column in the newspaper this week, we became friends just from me being on the sidelines at the airline football games and just developed a wonderful relationship, a very godly man. And Russell Hedges, our sports editor now, he and I went to Ronnie's house not long after his diagnosis and sat down and had lunch with him. And we were asking him how he was doing, how was his health, and we talked a little while, and he said, look, I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about y'all. Tell me what's going on with you two. And then we just started sharing the word, and just you know, it was a beautiful time, and I will never forget it. It's just, so to have opportunities like that and to be around people that love sharing the word and sharing the mission, and that's a lot, like I said, of what I feel I'm privileged to be able to do. And yes, I play drums, and I'm Methodist too. And our family was Baptist when I was a kid, and about 35 years ago, we joined the Methodist Church. My parents moved from here, where they had lived all my life, and moved over to East Texas. My dad had businesses in Shreveport, but also over in Longview, Texas, had a location over there. And he just got tired of driving back and forth all the way, so he's like, I want to live somewhere in the middle. And they selected Marshall, and it really worked out. Joined First Methodist Church in downtown Marshall. I'm sure y'all have been to the Christmas lights and the courthouse that's lit up. Our church is 1 block on the southeast side of the courthouse. And beautiful building built in 1860 and very historic. And we started the contemporary service in 2011. My mother, we called her the church lady because she was there just about all the time. She was a big part of back when they had the United Methodist Women's Circle. She was very involved in that, wound up being UMW president for a few years, and then got involved in St. Stephen's and headed up St. Stephen's for their church for almost 20 years. And Young at Heart, she was there every month they had their Young at Heart meeting, and just very big part of the church. Well, she had gotten out of a meeting at church, and the pastor called and said, your mom said that you used to play the drums. And I said, used to is the operative word, because I haven't picked up a drumstick in about 25 years. And he said, well, we're rehearsing. We're starting a contemporary service, which I already knew, and we're rehearsing this Saturday. This was like Wednesday. Would you like to come sit in? And I said yes without even thinking about it. And then I started thinking about, oh my gosh, what if I can't play anymore? What if I can't, you know? But I went, and pardon the pun, but I've never missed a beat since. And I, again, not bragging, but I went about 3 years without even missing a Sunday at all. And God just gave me, I've never had a drum lesson. It's just all from listening, a gift from God. It's just all from listening to records. I started playing when I was about 6 years old. I'm an only child, and that was kind of my entertainment. Just go lock up in my room, go lock up in my room for 2 or 3 hours and just play. Ran into a neighbor. We lived out off of Ellaby Road at the time, and the houses were pretty far apart. But I ran into a neighbor just the other day lived about half a mile down the road, and the first question they asked me, "Do you still play the drums?" And of course, I gladly said, "Yes, I do," and then got to explain how and why. Until I started playing at the church, I'd never played the drums outside of my bedroom. I'd never played in front of an audience. So that first Sunday, never will forget, August the 21st, 2011, I played in public for the first time. And it's just a gift from God, and that's all I can say. I played some other instruments by the time I was in about the 6th or 7th grade. I'm not saying I'm a great drummer, but I kind of wanted to do something else. So I took orchestra for a year and played the violin, and that just wasn't for me. So I switched to the band and had always dreamed of playing trumpet. And the band director looked at me. I still think he just needed a trombone player, but he said, "Your lips and your armature there looks like it would be more fitted to the trombone." I still think he was just short a trombone player. But I wound up playing trombone for 6 years and all the way through high school in both the marching band, the concert band, jazz band, all of it. And just thoroughly enjoyed that too, and getting to learn another side of music. Was actually going to be a music major until I was about a junior in high school. And then I just I'd started in my dad's business at a young age and just began to get more and more interested in that. And I decided I was this close to having a music scholarship to the University of Alabama. But my private instructor on trombone was band director at Barb High School in Lake Charles for many years. And by the time he had moved to Shreveport, worked for the old Williams Music Company in downtown Shreveport, repairing instruments because he knew instruments so well. But he also taught privately at his house out on Egan Street over in Highland. And I went every Tuesday night for 5 years. And he had set up this tryout. One of his former drum majors from Barb in Lake Charles was the main director at Alabama by that point. And he had the tryout set up. Well, unfortunately, Mr. Barbie, my instructor, passed away around that time, and I just never followed through with it. I sometimes wish or wonder what would happen if I would have, but it just became on my heart to stay here, and I wound up going to LSUS and just thoroughly, Chancellor Clark, that's retiring week after next, was my business law professor out there. And we've had a lot of good discussions about those days back in the 80s here recently. We have a business magazine. I know I'm skipping around a lot, pardon me. We have a business magazine called Biz Magazine. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but it's the only business-to-business publication, a publication that actually markets to other businesses. It's the only business-to-business publication in Northwest Louisiana, and we've been doing that since 2008. Comes out once a month. Well, I got to interview Chancellor Clark for our Biz Magazine, and we talked for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I reminisced a lot about the old days. I'm still a little bit active. My wife now is still on the alumni board out at LSU Shreveport. And we get to attend some events. So I've seen him some, but we just had a lot of good discussions about the old days. And he's been very supportive of Bossier Press Tribune and Biz Magazine in terms of providing us with a monthly column for the business magazine and some things there. So doing what we do, you get to meet a lot of great people in the community and a lot of great citizens, a lot of great supporters. You mentioned a while ago that, being underpaid for this position, yes, I'll be the first one to say yes. But it's a calling, it's a mission. You're not doing it just for the money. Working in my dad's business, people used to tell me, and again, you're the owner's son. You don't have to. I started in the warehouse, stacking boxes. I tried to get as dirty. My mother hated it because I would come home filthy. I tried to get dirty because I wanted it to look like I was working. And my dad in those days too also had an electronic parts business. That's actually how he started. TVs, picture tubes, antennas. A TV might be in shipment, brand new, and a receiving tube got cracked. So it didn't work right out of the box. Now your TV works for 20 years without blinking. But it wasn't like that back then. So we would ship parts out all over North Louisiana, East Texas, Southern Arkansas, and there was no neat shipping tape back in those days. It was the old glue paper type tape that you had to run through that machine that got it wet. Well, that glue and stuff would get all over you. And I was intentionally trying to get as dirty as that because I wanted it to look like I was working hard. But that just developed a work ethic in me that I hope I still continue to have today, because it just was such a blessing to get all those experiences and to get that business experience. It served me well in what I do. So we're a growing company. I know you hear a lot about when newspapers are dying, not community newspapers, not what we are. We have a niche, and we were in that niche doing what we do long before that became the place where all the growth happened to be. Your daily metro papers, don't mean to pick on the Shreveport Times, pardon me, but they're going that way because of the type of news they cover. You can get here now instantly. But a lot of, and yes, there's Facebook where you see a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, but a lot of the things that we publish, that community stuff, even the garden clubs, we've put stuff from your group here at church in there. When you know, we love for churches, we love for organizations to send us information on what they're doing. I want to publish that in the newspaper. That's what we do. But you can't see those kind of things in a lot of your larger metro papers, and because of that, they're kind of going by the wayside. Again, I do not mean to pick on the Shreveport Times, but it's become less and less local. A couple of Mondays ago, there was nothing local in there. A lot of the stuff came from Lafayette, their paper down there. A lot of the stuff now, you go back a certain number of pages and it's their USA Today. You might as well pick up the USA Today because, and I don't blame them from a business standpoint, but you know, that's not what people want to read. If you want to do that, just go buy USA Today. They want to read local stuff. And that's what we still try to do. That our Minden paper does the same thing. That's what we've always done there. You know, it's interesting in my time over there. My mother grew up there, so I still have a lot of close ties in that community. But in my time there, we're very close to Minden proximity-wise, but it's a different community than this. Yes, there are similarities, of course, but it's a different community than this. But we there too cover so many things that are just you're not going to see elsewhere, and them maybe even a little more so than us, because your TV stations and stuff like that, they only go to, again, not saying anything, that's just the way it is. They only go to Minden when something big happens. We're there for all the other stuff, and that's what we do. So it's a great opportunity to be there. We have a constant focus on both the quality and the content of our printed products. And as long as we have anything to do with it, we will always have a printed newspaper. That's another thing I hear about the folks across the river, that pretty soon, and nobody can say when, but they might not even have a printed product. They just want you to go online. And they have moved now, when they shut their printing plant down over after they built the new building, they moved to Longview, and now it's printing in Jackson, Mississippi. And that truck has to leave there about midnight to come this way. So the deadline's about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon for the printed product. And I've even had people tell me that, well, when you call and say something, they tell you just go online if you want to see it. Well, good. Isn't it great? Isn't it wonderful to have that opportunity? But not everyone wants to do that. My father, I could never, they were so petrified, and they continued to take the Times until they passed away. They'd been a subscriber. I think when I called to, I didn't cancel, I just amended the subscription a little bit to not come every day. But when I called, they said, well, your parents have been subscribers since 1964. And they were so scared that someone that they knew over here would pass away and they wouldn't see it otherwise. But I could not get my father to look up online. They went through a period of time when they were not getting their newspaper every day for various reasons. You know, the carrier wasn't throwing it or whatever. I said, well, Dad, all you have to do, I've showed you how to go online. Yeah, but that's too hard. I'm not doing that. You look it up for me and tell me if it's anybody you know or anything you think I ought to know. But, you know, that's not for everybody. We're fighting a battle now with the illegal ads that are in the newspaper. There are certain people in legislative positions, both in Louisiana and nationally, that are wanting to take the public notices to where they would just appear online and not even be in the newspaper. And you can't guarantee by doing that everyone gets to see it, because not everyone is going to go online and look it up. So the fact that we have a printed product that still publishes those kind of things is very important, because that everyone does have access to that, and if they don't, they can go to their local library and look it up. So we're fighting that battle, and it's a battle we may one day ultimately lose, but also we're doing online things too, and that's kind of what I want to get into a little bit now. Newspapers have to go digital. If you don't, you're probably going to fail altogether. Yes, we do have a digital product, but again, we still believe in the printed product. Yes, we do have a Facebook page that we post stuff on, because that's just what you have to do. You have to do that for nothing less to reach some of the younger people that are out there, and to build a readership and build a following there from that too. But we embrace that. We try our best to do what we do. We don't have someone that's sitting there doing the digital thing 24/7. We all kind of share it, but it is a part of what we do. And that's another thing we talked about, the payment or journalists being underpaid. It's a 24/7 position. And with this, it's even that much more so. My wife tells me all the time, because sometimes I don't sleep well. If I get to worrying about something or thinking about something, I'll wake up. Well, one of the first things I do is grab this, because I want to see if I've received any emails or see what's happened. And then once you do that, you're awake. You know, even if the other morning it was 1:30, well, then I didn't go back to sleep the rest of the night after I got up and got charged up and saw kind of what was going on and that kind of stuff. But, you know, you're constantly thinking about it, even when you're away from it. And so it is 24/7. We try to share a lot of the duties and a lot of the responsibilities so that no one gets burned out, because that's very important too. And but we love what we do, and we do it because it's a calling. It's just, you know, it's our mission. But we just enjoy being in Bossier Parish. We enjoy being in Bossier City. We call ourselves Bossier's newspaper because we are. There is no other newspaper in Bossier. You know, the folks across the river try to say that they are and that they include Bossier too, and they do on some things. But there is no other actual newspaper in Bossier Parish or Bossier City. We're it. So yes, we are Bossier's newspaper, and again, we carry that with pride, and we wear that badge proudly. So that's about all that I have to say. I wanted to leave some time for questions. I know I've talked a long time and I've skipped around a lot, but I love answering questions, especially in these kind of settings. So does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to ask me? Oh, come on, I wasn't that thorough. There's got to be something. Once a week. When I first started, we were twice a week, and then we went to, in August of 2008, we actually started publishing 5 days a week. And I had a dream. I started in advertising sales, just out, which I loved, out just seeing people to get them to do advertising in the newspaper, and became advertising director in 2002. And I just had visions that once we started doing the 5 days a week, these national retailers were going to be lined up at our door wanting to advertise with us. And just for various reasons, that didn't happen. And, you know, we had Target. When Target opened the store up on Airline Drive, they started running the weekly circular with us, actually 2 weeks before they opened. And that ran every single week without missing a week for almost 14 years. And they stopped last year because they stopped all newspapers last year. It wasn't just us. They stopped them everywhere. I've heard a rumor from the agency that handles their account that it might be coming back. But for almost 14 years, it ran every week with us. And they were our most long-term national advertiser. But I just had visions that they were just going to be, and that didn't happen. So we scaled it back to 3 days a week. And then we just decided at the time, It was pre-COVID, barely, and things had just changed to the point where we felt like it was a better fit for what we do at this time to become weekly. It's my dream to add to that. I would love to add another day or two back. That's just something that I want to see happen. I want to be a part of making that happen. But until we get to where we can be in that position to do that, we are a Wednesday weekly. Now, what we do, a big part of our newspaper now, when we went weekly, you can't really afford to have carriers out there because no one wants to do it really for just a once a week position. So the biggest majority of our newspapers are mailed out even to local subscribers. And we send it from the Benton Road Post Office over here on Tuesday afternoon so that people get it in their mail on Wednesday. And there's some drawbacks with that. I've had a lot of people telling me they like getting it in their mailbox. But we sometimes fall a little bit victim to the, again, not being critical, but to the slowness of the mail. And had a newspaper show up the other day with one of the yellow stickers on it, and it didn't get where it was going, but it was mailed 2.5 years ago. And when I right here for Bossier City, and when I went to the post office to show them what had happened and to ask some questions, they did some checking, I guess, with that code or sticker on there and the barcode. They could scan it, and they said, oh, it's been sitting in Houston this whole time. And I'm like, what? How could that be? But you know, overall it works out good, and until we can you know, figure out a way to make it work differently, then that's what we're going to do. But I would love to add another day. Heck, I'd love to be 5 days a week. I'd love to be 7 days a week. But until we can figure out a way to make that model work, then we're going to stick with the weekly plan. So, any other questions? It is growing. Now, I'm going to just be honest like I always am and always will be. It's not growing at the rate it once was, but it is growing. And, you know, unfortunately, you lose subscribers from the standpoint of they're no longer with us, which is always sad. But you've got to keep the new ones coming in, too, to make up for that loss. And then we get people that are moving to town that have heard about us and want to be a part of that, too. So we're growing. It's just not growing at the pace it once was. But any growth is good. And we're just trying to do the things that make it continue to grow and hopefully even grow a little faster, or maybe be somewhat like the old days. Old days may never come back in the form they were, but I'm sorry. You know, yes, but a lot of that it's in the effort you put into it. And for instance, this just happened, so I'm going to use Minden as an example. You've probably seen in our Bossier paper, we do ours in March. It's called Reader's Choice, where we run the survey and get our readers to ask our readers to vote on their favorite restaurants, their favorite this and that, in about 80 different categories. Minden just did theirs last month. And advertising revenue-wise, in the whole history of that newspaper, it was the most successful one we've ever had because we put a lot of effort into getting out and making those sales calls. So if you get out and tell your story and see the people, and it's still there. And it just, you've got to work, though. It's a lot more work than it used to be. They're not necessarily coming to you like they used to. You have to go to them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I love doing that. I don't get to do that as much as I used to, and I miss it. But it's always great. I love dealing with people. I love talking to people. And it's always great to get out, because just in going around, I go around some and see our advertisers just on a non-sales basis, just to go say, hey, you know, and a lot of them know me by now, but just you can find out a lot of things about their business. You can find out a lot of things about what's going on in the community just by getting out and visiting folks. And I love doing that. That's a great thing for me, and something I hope I will always get to do because I love it. I love it. So, yes, it's changed, and we've tried our best to change with it, and we're always going to be here. I mean, you can't ironclad guarantee, because something could happen that you had no control of, but as long as what's in our control, we're always going to be publishing a newspaper for Bossier. So All right. Anybody else? Well, thank y'all so much for this opportunity. It's been so great to be back. I have some of my business cards, and feel free to take one of these newspapers with you. I'll put my cards up here. We love being able to help folks to the best of our ability. So again, thank you, and I appreciate the chance to be here today. Thank you very much.